This ruined Mother's Day, but it sounds like mom texted back and said, "Hey, I'm sorry, I'm menopausal. Mother's Day's emotional. There's a lot going on. I'm sorry I did that to you." But that's a really powerful thing. This person's saying, "Hey, I didn't keep this a secret, but his mom is really religious, and I didn't want to make it awkward. But awkward sort of happened at us, and happened at the worst possible time." It's horrible, man.
This is a difficult situation, and what's really funny, what's kind of ironic about this is that Jim is an ordained minister. You are ordained.
I am ordained.
And I am an atheist.
Yeah.
That's what this podcast should be about. Forget mental health.
Yeah, we should just be talking about that.
Why are these two friends? That's what we should be talking about.
Why aren't they friends, Nick? I have no problem with it.
But this is a difficult situation that I think a lot of people maybe can't relate to.
Right.
It is... they've done studies on this as far as what qualities people would vote for in their politician. And most Americans would vote for every other minority group except an atheist.
Right. They'll take somebody who's an ex-criminal. Yes. They'll take somebody who's they're indicted, like they're under federal investigation, over an atheist.
Yeah.
And that just shows how much stigma there is.
Every group believes that they're the most persecuted group on the planet. I get that.
Atheists have an argument.
Atheists, I feel like it is, because it's very difficult, especially for family members. And I get this. I mean, because if you truly, truly believe what the gospel teaches and your family member comes out and says that they're an atheist, that's like eternal damnation in hell.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, if you truly believe that, that's a hard thing to accept.
Yeah.
But I guess to our listener, do you approach the conversation? I wouldn't, honestly, unless she wants to talk about it and bring it up again. You said your piece and that's done. I mean, what else will you explain?
Yeah.
What do you hope to gain by bringing it up again? If it's to come up with some kind of explanation behind your beliefs that she's going to understand and that she's going to fully accept and be like, "Oh, okay, I get it. I understand. That makes sense." I don't know. Maybe that'll happen. Probably not. I think you've said your piece, and I think that's it. If she wants to bring it up again, then definitely that's kind of my approach. I'm definitely open to having that conversation. If anybody wants to talk to me about my beliefs, strangely, no one ever has.
Right.
So it's just something that I just kind of keep to myself.
I think that's a good point, though. And I think that goes back to one of the reasons that Nick and I probably get along. We probably have different base camp understandings of our reality and assumptions about the world and, interpretations. But neither of us proselytizes. Neither of us is like a militant of that camp. Nick's not a militant atheist. I'm not a militant Christian. And even that word has become a weird word. It's fuzzy for me. Like, it's more like, I hope there's a God. That'd be neat. And otherwise, Christianity for me is in many ways kind of a philosophy, like as a worldview. It sort of gives me teachings about how to be kind to people and sort of not to, think that certain things are priorities and maybe to think other things are priorities. But, I just want to congratulate the writer. I really do. I know you went through a really awkward thing, and I can tell that you had kind of rehearsed how to do this. I mean, how you handled it was extremely graceful. And it's funny for me. I was almost laughing is when she's like, I explained that I used to be a Christian, and it made me laugh because I was like, of course you are, of course you were, because the number one creator of atheism is religion. Everybody's an ex something. So but I thought that she handled it really gracefully. And she was like, "Hey, I don't hate on your side of the story, right? I'm not here to dismiss your worldview. I don't want to hurt you. I value you. And I relate to you. I kind of used to come from that. And so I speak your language. I'm fluent in your way of thinking. However, I no longer align with it." And what a passive and very generous way to present those facts, and it sounds like she overreacted. It sounds like honestly, to tell you the truth, writer, the best possible outcome happened. She grieved, she dealt with that, and you handled yourself so well that she felt compelled to recontact you and apologize for her reaction. She sees that her reaction is out of line with what you presented. That's awesome. And that means you handled yourself so well and so classily that was available as an option.
Yeah. And the other thing, too, that kind of sticks out to me that, the writer talks about it seems like you're very concerned about how does this change how she views you. I can absolutely relate to that. I'd say the majority of my family doesn't even know that I'm an atheist.
I was kind of surprised you brought it up. Like, you outed yourself, and I was like, uh-oh.
Because they don't listen.
Yeah, we just went over your mom doesn't listen to this, so she has no clue. Okay.
Broadcasting this on this podcast is about as safe as never.
It's like screaming at the ocean. Yeah,
yeah,
nobody heard you. Okay.
Yeah, so it's fine. I'm not too concerned.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, I get that because that label has a stigma attached to it.
Right.
And I don't think it's really fair, but
No.
it is what it is. But honestly, I mean, what she's saying is like, hey, I've been this way for the last 10 years. You just didn't know it.
Right.
So the person that you know me as is the same person I am now. It's the same person I always have been. And she will figure that out. I don't think you need to have that discussion with her, because I think that's where the writer is coming from, saying like, I really want to explain to her, like, look, I am a good person, and I have to, I just because I don't believe in your God doesn't mean that, I'm a bad person. You don't have to have that argument.
Yeah.
You just be you.
Right.
She'll see that.
Let me ask you something, Nick. So you've outed yourself here. You've come out and said, listen, I identify as the writer in this. I'm the atheist. What advice do you have for another person who's about to go through something similar? What advice do you have for the delivery of that message, for your own self-thought, and how you feel about yourself giving that message? Speak for Tribe Atheist and give them some advice.
That's tough.
It is tough, and I'm putting you on the spot.
Question because,
but I believe you can produce that answer because I think you've had to think this through a lot.
Yeah, and I wish more people would come out and say it. I mean, there's even within the community, there's kind of this divide because, some people feel like really strongly about it and they like want to proclaim it and all that. But I don't, I can't remember who it was. It may have been Ricky Gervais was saying this or somebody, but like, I also don't believe in leprechauns.
Right.
I'm an leprechaunist.
Right.
But I don't feel the need to go tell everybody that.
I see.
It's just because I don't live my life based off of that.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing. I live my life based off of, what I believe to be right and wrong, how I grew up, and what I know from what I've learned in my environment. It would be nice if more people did kind of come out as atheists to kind of remove some of the stigma, so a guy like Jim can say like, oh, well, I always had this belief about atheists, but then I met Nick and he's an atheist and he doesn't fit any of those stereotypes.
Defeats the stigma.
Right. But on the other hand, sometimes it's not safe for people to come out about that. I mean, there's a lot of people who are in very religious homes, and you coming out as an atheist may mean that you don't see your family again. And that's tough. I can't tell somebody that, they should come out as an atheist if that's what you have to face. If that's what you have to face, I'd stay in the closet.
Yeah. No, that's huge.
On the other hand, Jim, what advice would you give to the Christians?
Okay. So actually, here's the way I want to think about this, and I'm glad you asked that question. So if you're out there today and you identify as somebody who comes from my faith tradition of Christianity, and you hear the story and you think, boy, I sure do identify with that woman, and here's how I would have handled it, or I've seen it handled it worse than that. Because I think that woman just cried, made it awkward for everybody, but she didn't like become harassing or bad.
Right.
But here's kind of honestly my authentic take on this. My faith, what my faith means to me and the way that I live my life, I see myself not so much as a Christian, but as a Jesus impersonator. So as a Las Vegas guy, I see Elvis impersonators all the time, and they dress like him, and they act like him, and they and they like swing their hips, and they're trying to reenact the person. They're trying to summon the character and be that at other people, because in that case, it's entertaining. For me, I try to summon the character of Jesus that I read about in the Bible because I find him charming, and I find him warm, and I find him gregarious, and I'm especially attracted to his concepts of social justice. And so for me, I believe that there is a scene in the Bible in which there's a woman who's stigmatized for her profession. She's a whore. And the religious people of the day, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, are lining up and picking up stones to kill her and to execute her for her crime of being somebody that doesn't fit in their culture. And the position of Jesus Christ is to stand between the stigmatized and the stone thrower. To me, that is the essence of what my faith teaches me. If you're in that situation and you call yourself a Christian, your place is between the persecuted and the prosecutor. And if you're standing there, you're impersonating what Jesus would do. And so if you're out there and you have strong beliefs, if your beliefs do not begin with a defense of those who are stigmatized and thought less of, if your faith does not begin with being the person who stands for justice and protecting those who are hurt and cast down upon, if it does not begin with standing up to the religious, you don't look anything like Jesus. So I think that because my faith is very colored by that concept, I look at this and I just want to tell this person who wrote, thank you for your bravery. Thank you for your authenticity. I think that that's wonderful. And I think you handled somebody that you care about very much with a very sensitive touch. And I think you went with Nick's philosophy of thinking about what you want as a result. Do you want to lose this relationship? No. You want to increase it. And so you handled it delicately and politely, and I think you got the best possible result. And if you're a Christian out there or you're a religious person out there and you have these kinds of encounters or these fears, or you're the mom in this story, my advice to you is to reflect and appreciate another person's authenticity, that their truth is their truth, and you have to admire that about them and value that in them, and remember that the Jesus that you are impersonating, or the Muhammad that you are impersonating, or the Buddha that you are impersonating, there's a certain way that they would live and treat others. And if you're not doing that firstly, then you're nothing like them.
Right. That's great advice. And the other thing too is to the listener, I have to say that is a very brave thing. That's a courageous thing to just be able to be honest and say that. And the other thing too with this is, why is she asking that? I'm sure she's asking that question because she already knows.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. I think most people kind of already know that. Like, I remember there was a point in my life where I went through something really devastating, and it was absolutely terrible. It was the worst thing that I've ever gone through in my life. And I remember having a conversation with my sister who was saying, because my sister is very religious. She's the youth group leader at her church, and all that. And she was saying, well, I hope that by going through this, that this leads you back to Jesus. And I was like, well, what do you mean? I don't know what you're talking about. Well, she's like, well, because you're atheist. And I never told her that.
Oh.
I said,
how do you know
how
that?
did you know that?
Just like
she's
your
like,
Facebook.
Yeah, she's like, well, I've known that for years. I was like, oh, wow. I mean, like, we've never had that conversation, but like, people, family, I think kind of know.
Right.
And so the fact that you were just able to just say, no, I don't.
Right.
I appreciate the honesty. And I'm sure your mother-in-law appreciates that as well.
All right, that's all the time we have for this week's session. Thank you to those who contributed to our show today. We really appreciate it. Remember, pod therapy isn't something you should keep all to yourself. Help us reach others by sharing this episode. You can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/podtherapy, or on Twitter @podtherapyguys.
Do you want to add your own advice to today's questions? Post your thoughts at podtherapy.net and join the conversation. I'm Nick Tangeman.
I'm Pretend Jesus Christ.
Thank you, and we'll see you for your appointment next week. Jesus had longer hair.